listeners, and welcome to today's Let's Talk Politics Live with myself, Dr. Dula, our super co host, Mr. John Bailey, and our
Peace,
special
peace.
co host, Miss Lisa Williams. How you doing this day, Mr. Bailey?
I'm doing well, sir. I'm doing well. This is a great time to do the kickoff for season three. I'm happy to be here with you, sir.
Tell you what, I'm just excited. I really missed you guys over the holiday and just so happy to be back. There's a lot of things happening in our society, in our country today, county, and I look forward to addressing those in the coming months. However, our theme today will be centered around history and past and present, along with the contributions that women have made to our society. So I think that is a right on target, Mr. Bailey. What?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have to make sure that we commemorate and remember all of the great things women have done in our past, and celebrate the great things that they're doing today.
Amen. I agree with that. Before we get started, I'd like to read a little short essay that we prepared uh, for this broadcast. And just bear with me just a moment. I'm going to take my time because I want you to hear this. It says, "We err when we overlook inside resources as we look to outside resources to save our day. Unified communities depend on smart infrastructure development. Across America today, we celebrate Doc's birthday. In 2023, we hear about the civil rights movement, a need to focus on Black rights under the Constitution of the United States of America, the same Constitution that suppressed Black achievement, Black presence, the Black vote, and Black human rights. Today, we have progressed in many ways intellectually, politically, economically, and somewhat socially, but still fall prey to the supremacy of others, whereas too many political figures clamp down under critical race theory and Southern strategies in an effort to once again suppress Black awareness in the name of self preservation. What is the solution? I suggest that during this Dr. Martin Luther King Day, we continue to focus on service, but at the same time, we begin to practice unity with focus on creating community of caring. We also must realize the greatest strength of any community is supporting key causes from inside out and not outside. The dependent, the dependent plantation support theory must be replaced by self-sufficiency, education awareness based on historical facts becoming institutionalized, enlightenment through generational interaction. Generations must realize strength is derived by way of unified efforts, consensus building, and a commitment to one another. Each one must learn to teach the other. The best weapon to raise up any person or any community is trigger of education. That's my interpersonal moment because I know that from an educational fact that we all must work if we're going to make a difference and become the change that we talk about. What do you think, Mr. Bailey?
Absolutely. I think you just laid out a blueprint for us. All right. I certainly appreciate in the understanding of starting within. We have resources that are close to us first. When we're working on ourselves, we start within. And in dealing with a culture, we have so many resources that we have right within our reach. And we tend to look outside for resources when that's unnecessary. That's just putting more work on us. And we have to understand what our issues are within first and approach them in that manner. We have the resources, so we don't have to go outside. And we
Mhm.
must understand the education behind these resources. We have to bring them together and make them stronger. If we continue to go out and reach out to other resources, we're going to weaken ourselves and our resources within. I believe that.
Mhm. Earlier, I know that the production team, OG Wow and media and Crystal and Tara and just talked about a saying by Muhammad Ali. He said, "Never feel sorry for me. I'm great." In other words, never feel sorry for me. Great. And the greatness within is within our communities. And we have people that are doing so many great things. We have people that are feeding the hungry, clothing those that need to have clothing, housing those that need to be housed, and going out on the speaking trail talking about what's needed in our community today. I think that the negative side is we would we too often look to people outside of our area and tell us what to do and how to do it instead of turning to these people for speaking engagements, workshops, and things of that nature where they can say, here's what I'm doing, here's the lessons I learned, here's my best practices. And we use that in our infrastructure to build a better community. And that is something we're not doing. We need to start looking at the inside out instead of the outside in when it comes to helping our children and our communities move forward in a defined way. Now you're past civic association president. You grew one of the largest and most successful civic associations in the state of Maryland, and it's because uh, the community reached out and listened to you. Do that in a broader way. So I know you were getting ready to make comments. So go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. We have to search from within and bring the community together. The village is what we absolutely need. We have our own village, and we overlook and we look blindsided to what we have in our own areas. It doesn't make sense to go outside and use the extra gas and use the extra phone calls and all of that, and when you have people that can help you accomplish your goals, rubbing elbows with you. We have to pay attention to what's going on and understand and and embrace everyone around us because we're they like you say the infrastructure is already here. We have to use it.
Another saying that we captured this week is the one that we created. It says every person or every community must find the greatness that lives within them. Everyone must be determined to achieve success, and they must be willing to recognize the shortfalls, recognize those that are addressing the shortfalls, and then call upon those resources to make a difference in our communities where we live. It's not we have passed that point to where, in my heart, where we ask, "What's wrong with us today? What's wrong with our children? What's wrong with our?" We have passed that point
Right.
because we have overlooked the resources we have right here. I often use the resource and the topic of the that saw a shortfall in the communities where they live, and the government was not providing the smart infrastructures that it should have to care for our children, teach our children. So the Black Panthers created daycare programs, food programs, education programs. They went on to get a bad rap, I feel, in my personal opinion, from the federal government because they did step out, willing to take a lead. But on the other side of the coin, once again, it's the way blacks were viewed in America at the time. So I think there's lessons that we can learn and use the lesson from Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois that said, "Stand tall to be heard." Okay, because when we work together, we can accomplish anything. But we
Yeah.
work together if we're going across the country, paying people thousands of dollars to come in and tell us what's wrong, and then going back home talking about, "Well, I went and told them." It
Yeah,
has to
you're
start
right.
from the inside.
It does. It does. Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, what you're bringing up with the Black Panthers, that's exactly what we need to do, and that's embracing our culture and our areas with love and understanding that we have to move in an intergenerational manner. So that's the elders teaching the young folks, feeding them, making sure they have the nourishment so they can learn in school because these are going to be the business owners, the next politicians, and everything that involves all the inner workings of our community. And once we get those things together, get them at their peak, and then they'll be able to take over, because they are going to take over. We're going to be aside, and we're doing the work now. But at one point, we're going to have to set aside and absolutely allow the next generations to take over. But if they're prepared, but that's we have to embrace that and uplift them and make sure that they get the education and understanding and work ethic and feeling of all of that together, so they can come in and do a successful job.
Amen. We have heard about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where it starts with safety, security, food, shelter, water, right on up to self belonging and self actualization. And I look at our as being the same way. We have to go through stages of development if we're going to achieve self actualization. So I'll go back and read the one statement I made where I said the dependent plantation support theory must be replaced by self sufficiency, education awareness based on historical facts becoming institutionalized. I just heard over in the state of Virginia, and I'm not throwing stones at Virginia. I lived in Virginia for many years, but the governor there is talking about we're going to go back and teach that Christopher Columbus discovered. One of
Mm,
the things that captured my attention on that is because I'm a historian. I'm a retired educator, taught
yes,
Black history and a number of college classes over a 13-year period. But what caught my attention there was, and it was quite humorous because when I heard that, uh, I said an education must be fact based because Columbus didn't discover a new continent; it already existed. He merely stumbled upon it through his ignorance.
right,
And it wasn't he discovered it. He went back and told Europe about it, but it was already discovered. So he did not discover America. And so that's what I tell people all the time. Education is powerful. Knowledge is powerful. And so when we start studying and learning behind the scenes things, like Lincoln had the Civil War so we could free the slaves, no, he was preserving the Union. Later
right,
on in
right,
1863, when we started talking, when Frederick Douglass told him, say, hey, look, Brother Lincoln, you're losing the war. You're losing your battles. And the white troops are going back home now. They're disillusioned. So what you going to do? He says, Douglas said, I think we need to start freeing the slaves so they can come and fight on our side. Once that 1860 Emancipation Proclamation was passed, uh, those that broke away from slavery and got to Union lines were deemed free, and then they created, Black units like the 54th Massachusetts Infantry and others that turned the tide of the war. We need to, you don't see that in our history. But
right.
those are little facts where blacks have made a difference since the Revolutionary War, where Crispus Attucks was killed in Boston during the Revolutionary War. The shot that was heard around the world, and right on through history. But we didn't make the history. Not we're not taunted as heroes. We've been left out of the whole scenario. So when you don't have that hero factor and you go through 400 years of slavery, you lose your pride, you lose your respect, you lose your foundation. And therefore, when communities today, we still look to that outside resource to help us to build the infrastructure. I said infrastructure development, intergenerational collaboration. That means that generations teaching the next generation and helping the next person to rise up. Like Dr. said, the talented 10, get yours and come back and help somebody else. Well, that was the old African way of doing business. That was
Right.
it. So we need to get back to reality to where we are helping each other. We are building our own way. We're taking a look at how we can improve our infrastructure from inside and not always looking to the outside. And I'm a little keyed up this morning because I woke up early and I started thinking about this. I said, how many of the folks that I know are doing all this hard work right in the county invited out to speak at Dr. King events this weekend?
Right.
I have not. I don't know. Maybe you have. I don't know any of my friends that have. People are bringing in folks from elsewhere to come in and tell us how to run our lives.
How
And
about
I
that?
think And I think it's time for us to step up to the plate and to begin to look inward instead of always looking at the outward. And I guess what's that old saying? The grass is greener on the other side. So I guess we think that somebody's eating greener grass than we are, when we're the
Right.
most affluent majority county in all of the United States of America. I said we have the resources.
We
We
do.
have the resources.
We do. Absolutely. And that's food for thought as we go into our break. And we'll be right back after these messages.
Indie for your mind, indie for your spirit. It's Wild Radio, so you know you're gonna hear it. Whether you like to spit it or you just wanna feel it. Forever indie, baby, and you know we got the spirit. Indie for your mind, indie for your spirit. Indie for your mind, indie for your spirit. Indie for your mind, indie for your spirit. Indie media for the indie spirit on Wild Radio.
I hope our listeners stayed with us because we're going to get into a very good discussion today about women, about our history, and we're going to continue to move forward, continue using the insight of Mr. John Bailey, who one of the most dynamic civic associations in the United States today. But at the same time, we know civil rights history did not take place just with men leading the way. We know for a fact that we had people behind the scenes like Queen Nzinga, who protected her kingdom in Africa from Dutch slave traders. And for 50 years, she fought as head of state in her country. We can go move forward and look at people like Harriet Tubman, who was a former slave who escaped through her bravery, who helped countless others escape slavery after making trips back down into the slave territory to rescue them from the slavery at that time. We also can talk about people like Sojourner Truth, who stood tall. She was freed, went on the speaking tour, and began to say, began to take up the causes of women's liberation and women's causes, because it was a time before women could even vote. So she was the one that's well known for the topic, for the saying, "I'm not a woman," and which I feel set the stage for the future generations to ask themselves that question: Am I not a woman? Am I not a strong? Am I not a black strong woman? Am I not someone that can lead and change history as we know it today? So we have had many powerful women who have set the tone for who we are today, and we can look at people that somewhat operated behind the scenes, uh, what is it, Betty Shabazz or Claretta Scott King and some others who you didn't see out in front, but they were advising from the rear. And I often think of Mrs. Roosevelt, who, when President Roosevelt had polio, and there was a lot of things he couldn't do, she went out. She flew with the Tuskegee Airmen voluntarily. She made a difference in this. So we look at our history, and sometimes women are overlooked, and I think it's time to change that. What do you think, Mr. Bailey?
I think you're spot on. And we can attest because we have Mrs. Dula and Mrs. Bailey who remind us daily of the strength that women have in the mountains that they move. Sometimes we may be the face of things, but the actual foundation is being laid by someone else. And if you really understand that, we relationships will be much better and in that understanding and moving forward, because a marriage is something to hold on to and it will express who you are, and we represent each other as we go out every day into the public and representing our families. I just saw that in Boston they erected a sign or a memorial which commemorates the embrace that the Kings did when Dr. King won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. And that brings us back to that love and understanding. So that surrounds that love and that embrace that we have to have. You have to have that. And the women complete that love in our societies.
Mm. And you are so right, and people like Rosa Parks, who worked as a secretary in the office down Montgomery during the time of around 1954 and 1955, when she decided to sit on the bus. They saw what was going on. And, as we have said in past shows, in order to move forward, in order to make a difference, you have to first realize the need. To realize the need, you have to determine a course of action. And once you determine that course of action, then it's time to act. And I think that will future show. But we can expand upon that today by saying that generations must realize strength is delivered by way of unified effort, consensus building, and commitment. That means working together. Look at unified effort. The theme song we have is "You and I," which means
Indeed.
united to make a difference. We're united jointly. So
Yes.
when we look at women, women always led our way in America, in this country, since the Middle Passage. And we came across that great big pond called the Atlantic Ocean against our will. Uh, in the motherland of Africa, uh, there was family structure, and the men was family. Let's face it. But once we came across the Middle Passage, that was the men were stripped of their responsibility, and they stepped up to the plate. Women worked on many occasions, worked in the big house. Women raised the children, but men had to remain dormant, silent, and actually non-existent. And so we lost that over generations of slavery. Women led the way even then. So now that we're in the 21st century, I almost said the 20th century, but now we're in the 21st century, seeing a rich history develop in this country over time, whereas women have stepped up to the plate and made a difference. I look at women like Lisa Williams. Lisa in this segment? Lisa Williams, who is chair
Yes.
of a commission right here in Prince George's County, a very outspoken person, one that sees reality for what it is, and is not afraid to act. So, welcome aboard, co-host, special co-host, Mr. Williams. We're so happy to have you today, and
Absolutely.
we
Absolutely.
recognize your leadership, and that comes with awesome responsibility. So, welcome aboard.
To give
Well,
some commentary to what we're discussing today in terms of women leading. So thank you for that.
we know that during the 1940s, especially, it was a time of segregation, separate but equal, and well, the only person of color you saw on TV was probably Nat King Cole. He was the first, from what I understand, and so we were in the background. But Brown versus the Board of Education, a little girl, Linda Brown, and her parents went by schools every day, and they said, "Why? I want my daughter to go to this school." So they sued, and the case was Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas.
Yep.
And when they went through the Supreme Court, little Linda Brown was able to go to the school of her choice. It ended theoretically separate but equal in black codes in this country in 1955. Moving forward, Rosa Parks sat on the bus, but Rosa Parks sat on the bus created the civil rights movement. Really, it jumpstarted the civil rights movement. And the person chosen to lead that civil rights movement was a young man by the name of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. down in Montgomery, and the Montgomery bus boycott to boycott the buses that lasted about a year. But there's another thing that we leave out, and that's the story of the women who had already began planning for a bus boycott, organized themselves in 1949 as the Montgomery Women's Council to address systemic racism in Montgomery, Alabama. So they had already started drafting a plan for such a boycott. So when Rosa Parks sat on the bus, they just went to Alabama State University, took the plans off the shelf, dusted them off, and say, Dr. King, you can do this by yourself. You don't have to reinvent a new wheel. We already have it. And do you guys know the name of that person, that college professor that did that?
I do not.
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Well, her name was Mary Fair Burke. Okay, Professor Mary Fair Burke. And she and the ladies of Montgomery County got together, began producing Xerox and things they could pass out all over Montgomery, Alabama. Said, we're not going to ride the bus, we're going to walk. Folks said, well, how are we going to get to work? I walk that far. So, okay, that's another issue. So we will form carpools. So they began to take a look at their plan, modified their, said, Dr. King, you lead the effort, but we have the plan. So once again, women rule the day. Women rule. Okay. So why don't we have a discussion on women and what they have done for our nation? Ms. Williams, maybe you want to tell a little bit about you or any topic you'd like to introduce.
Sure. I was actually doing a little research, and the first woman who sued to not be enslaved was Elizabeth Key Grinstead. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with her, but she was born to a black slave woman in 1630 on a plantation owned by her father. She sued, and she was mistakenly classified in his estate as a slave. But she filed a freedom suit in 1655 with the help of her partner and her child's father, who was a lawyer, and successfully argued that her English ancestry prevented her from being enslaved for life.
So she was not enslaved?
She was, but she
okay.
won her lawsuit on the basis of being part white.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, isn't that strange? That's something, because now here is dotted with incidents, whereas many times black women who had certain features were able to pass for white.
Yep.
I know that my mother, who of Italian and African American descent, had aunts, on her mother's side that would fight, and they would ride in the white coach sections of the trains, and nobody ever caught on to it. My mother often told me about that, and I'd forgot about it till we were talking about one day about women in history and things of that nature. She said, remember the story of Aunt so-and-so and Aunt so-and-so? They used to ride in the cars and blah, 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 blah. And I had to laugh because I said, you know what? They figured a way to get over. And so, and that's how they traveled. But, I think about Eleanor Roosevelt. My goodness, can you think about, can you just consider the times, the 1940s, and that war, December 7th, 1941, the day that will live in infamy, her husband, President Roosevelt said. And she stepped out to boldly say, hey, look, I'm not going to carry this racist agenda.
Right.
And I think it was Bethune-Cookman. Is that who it was? Became a good friend of hers.
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Yeah, became a good friend of hers. Was often invited to the White House. I guess today you'd say they palled around. But she made a difference. She started tearing down the color line in her society where she lived, and then went on to fly with the Tuskegee Airmen and broke color lines there, and people thought she was crazy. You know, I was who?
Yep.
Who went on to be the most decorated aviators the world had ever known. She said, "I don't want to fly with you. I want to fly with them."
Right. Right.
So women have really led the way. You know, through the 1919 marches and women's suffrage, when he said, "Hell no, we're not going to take it anymore," and got out and started fighting for women's rights. It wasn't just for white women's rights; it was for white and black and all women's rights. So we got the 20th Amendment, so women could step out and really lead by example and get the right to vote. Can you imagine not being able to vote since 67 all the way up to 1919?
No,
Yeah.
I was not cut out for that era.
I think you're in the right period. Chair Williams doesn't take it.
No, I don't. I'm very direct. I call it what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's change the trajectory. Where do you see us going into the 21st century? We have young ladies now that are trying to figure their way in life. How can we best come to advise them and to make sure that the opportunities are there for them? Say at the teenagers today, the opportunities are there well into. How do we do that? And you know what? I've just been advised that we are ready for another break. These breaks sure do come off, and but listeners, we're going to take a quick. We'll come back and we'll continue with Miss Linda Williams, Lisa Williams. I'm sorry. Be right back. Got Brown versus the Board of Education on my mind.
Hey guys, this is Ty Flood, founder of the Awesome Women of Empowerment Group, also known as the AW Group. And the AW Group is a mental health organization and support group geared towards providing various resources, wellness programs, and encouragement to women and families who are living with a mental health condition. Connect with us by visiting theawgroup.org or follow us on Instagram or Facebook under @theawgroup. That's THEAWE Group.
Did you know that BWCC is now streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio? Yep, that's right. Go to any of these platforms and search Black Women Connecting Communities. That's Black Women Connecting, CONNEXTING Communities. Follow us and add us to your list of favorite podcasts.
Okay, Mr. Bailey, we're back. Short
Yes,
break.
sir. Yeah, it was.
We're going to talk about where do we go from here and how can women continue to help our movement move forward when it comes to advancing in both education, society, politics, things of that nature. What can we do as a community to help the next generation move forward? And start off with you, Ms. Williams. Welcome back.
Thank you. I think there's a number of things that we can do. The first of which is obviously modeling the behavior that we would like to see from our young people, and how we approach making change, and creating opportunities for young women and young men to lead. I've done that myself, and I had a work experience where a young lady, smart as a whip, but she worked for me, and I really had to work with her to get her to win over our senior vice president, who was an older guy. So I got to the point where I would, whenever we were in meetings and a question was asked of me, I would defer to this young lady. So, it's really about, creating the opportunity for young folks to step in and do it. but we also have to model what we're looking for. What are your thoughts?
I think that's a great statement. We have to model ourselves after someone else. So when we start to think about that, in the military, we always say we lead by example. And when we lead by example, remember others are watching. And let me stop just to say I want to thank OG Wow Radio for really sponsoring us and these shows each month because they really do make a difference in our community, and I know others are watching. And what we're really trying to do is give food for thought. We're not experts in all the things we talk about, but we do study our history and we do believe in each one touching one so that we can make a difference in a unified way in the communities where we live. And that's the whole reason for these, whether it's social topics, political, economic, we try to bring it all, but it's just to raise awareness so that our communities are all operating on one accord. So anyway, as we move forward, I like what you said, the model of behavior, because I look sometimes and I'm a seasoned person. Yeah, I know Crystal wasn't that funny, but but I see young men and well, let's see, seasoned men and women who still dress as if they're teenagers, and I hear them use language that you would not expect from seasoned individuals, 50 and above.
Okay.
And it bothers me because I have to ask myself, who are we modeling after? I mean, who are we who are we following, Mr. Bailey? What do you think?
Well, that statement is actually accurate. Now, do we understand? I understand that we definitely need to model. I was just thinking about Fannie Lou Hamer, who went out and fought for voter suppression and things of that sort. If things that were happening way back then are still some of our same issues that we have now, but we have to go out and do the work and set the trends. So I absolutely appreciate that statement being made. We have to, yeah. And who are we following? It's really important. We have to make sure that we get that point across to our younger generations, and actually be that beacon of light that they can follow. And what we say and what we do have to be in the same accordance. So we can't expect something out of them that we're not doing at all.
You're absolutely right because Miss Williams really opened up my mind to think in a different way here from where I was going. Uh, I think that one of the things we need to do is also focus on building incubators in our
Mm.
community so that we can pull the young people in and show them the appropriate way to act or to be assimilated in our communities. I also think that along with incubators, there should be other programs developed where students will be able to be involved and learn from the older generation or those living in the community trying to make a difference. We need that community of inspirators that can touch the youth in a more prevalent way. And lastly, I'll say this: we need to have both formal and informal incubators. When I say that, or I'm thinking about the institutionalized programs that may be operated in our community through daycare or after school care and things of that nature, but also from an informal perspective. I think that each person should be willing to take on the responsibility to help someone. And that goes back once again to the talented 10th theory of Dr. Du Bois. Get yours and then go back and give someone else and then stand tall to be heard. Oftentimes we don't stand tall. I know that we ask people to go to county council meetings, but we don't. But then later on, when the taxes are raised, and things, just thought I'd throw that one out there, and and things happen, we want to stand up and say, "What happened? How did that
Right.
happen? I didn't know that."
Right.
Well, quite naturally, you wouldn't know it because that's an institutionalized procedure, and you didn't show up to voice your opinion. So there's a lot of things we have to do to make sure that people realize that their actions do have consequences and their non-actions have consequences too. So don't step back and say what's wrong with these. Ask yourself, what are you doing to affect the behavior of our children? And it's not all up to the women, Miss Crystal. That it's up to the men too to lead
Indeed.
by example.
I agree with you. Thank you, Dr. Dula, and everyone. And something that I spoke about before is, being an example. We all have to be an example in each level of our growth. And one of the things that I say is, we have to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses kind of guide the way to, you know, your destination. If someone sees a lighthouse, that's a safe space. That's somewhere where you can get guidance and be guided in the right direction. So, being authentic and showing up in your community and being a lighthouse so that when people see you, they can recognize that you are someone in the community to be a leader. Um, that is, that's the personal responsibility too, as well. And I love what Miss Williams was saying about deferring to younger people and really kind of giving them the voice, because a lot of times, if you're not given that opportunity, if you're not given that the actual practical skills to use your voice in real world and real life situations, when the opportunity arises, then you don't know how to do it. So my shirt here says visionaries in power. We have to be visionary to then, have the vision. If you behold the vision, you have to be able to share it. And Martin Luther King's dream, because we're talking about his dream, he had that and he did empower. So I love what we're talking about. And as women, we have this nurture thing that we're really good at, that we kind of have to hone in, and we have been strong, but we have to bring. I think it's time to kind of like shift that balance and kind of bring it back into really being nurturers to help bring our communities together. That's probably one of the biggest responsibilities that I see women's role in right now.
Very good points. And I know one of the topics, where do we go from here? And I just made a few notes based on what everyone has said up to this point. Uh, and The first one was be a voice, be the voice.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to speak out. Stand tall to be heard. Model. Make sure that you lead by example. Lighthouse. Let your beacon shine. Don't just get it and keep it within. Let your aura spread out to those around you. Ink. Make sure that you're the influencer. Make sure that you're working with children in your neighborhood. Make sure that you have a place where they can come and feel comfortable and feel safe and be able to talk to adults. That's that intergenerational communication we spoke of a couple sessions back. And also, be the influencer. Don't wait for it to come to you. Go out and take it to the community and make a difference where you live. Remember that garage door theory? Whereas in the mornings we get up and we go and we open the garage door and pull out and go to work, past about 1 million kids standing on the corner waiting for the bus. Never say, come back from work, hit the button, open the garage door, go in, hit the button, close the garage door, and you were not the influencer on anything for not one of the kids in your neighborhood. So we encouraged a couple sessions back for people to get away from the garage door syndrome and for to get into the community, know who your neighbors are, and then create something that's going to address, first of all, the needs in your community. Because once you realize what the needs are, then you can organize and you can plan to address those needs. Uh, and uh, and that's what we call structure. The last part of that is outreach. Go out and tell somebody. Don't keep it in yourself. I put out essays, and all you guys get my essays, and others do too. Uh, but I wish I heard back in larger number from those that read them. I might see you on the street and say, "Oh yeah, I saw your email. Okay, thank you. Did you share it with someone?" So, yeah, but did you share it with someone? I mean, that's how the difference is that's how things uh, you know, uh, that's how sparks get started at growing the raging fires, because we pass things around. We can't sit on the information we collected. That's all I'm saying. And some of our greatest leaders have been women who realize that. And when I stop and I take a look at all the women in our community who are doing great things, I just, it just amazes me. I look at the Tara Lewises and the Crystal Glens and the Cherry Williams and the Cherry McCulloughs and also Brooks and uh, and uh, and others who are out there leading by example. And we need to point out that they are leading by example, because if you don't tell them, people will overlook the fact.
Yeah.
When the mayor Washington steps out there and she's talking and which is a strong person, if we don't back her up, this what were you
Absolutely.
gonna say, Crystal?
Oh, I was gonna say that's a very good point. The acknowledgement to be able to point out and put our leaders in front of people to acknowledge that these are the people doing the work is very important. Back to what you're saying, this MLK, we should have more people in our area being speakers, and you know. But I'm
Yeah,
also a believer of they don't open the door for you, create your own door. So
Mm-hmm.
I sent out
Yeah.
essays to about 100 essays, and I got one back from a young man that says, if the door's not open, burn it down. and, and I, and I would say, let's not start. Let's not
let's not burn
start
it.
burning. I said, let's not start burning, but the right phrase is "burn, baby, burn." Okay, just so you get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
but
understood. Well, look,
but it,
guys, we have to go. It is break time one more again. So we are going to take another short break, but we're going to come back with this great panel from the Let's Talk Politics group celebrating MLK and the role that women play in that history. So we'll be right back.
thank you, Miss Glenn.
Thank you.
Can Okay. Well, we're back. All right. Just a little slight technical glitch there, but this segment I'm going to ask a question, and I'll start it off, and I'll be very brief. Did the civil rights era really accomplish the dream? If yes, how? If not, what? And what do you see as the role for women in our society today? Along with who is your woman role model? I will say for my generation, segregated schools, rode on the back of the bus, and had to march for our rights. That in some ways, yes, the civil rights movement accomplished the dream because we out of it. We got the Voting Rights Act, and we got the Civil Rights. We also saw the destruction of separate but equal was shot down, and so those things that my generation marched for, sit in for, spoke up about, were accomplished. I think the overall question now is now that the Civil Rights Act was signed, the Voting Rights Act was signed, Brown versus the Board of Education ended separate but equal. What are we going to do about it? Because Dr. King set out to get those things done, and they were done. But once the plan is achieved, it's up to the rest of us to make sure the plan is implemented. So, what are we going to do about it at a time when being killing children? At a time we see blacks fighting on buses in our city, as a nation, at a time when we see police brutality and young black men killed in the streets of America, at a time when we see young ladies confused because they don't know which way to go because of the lack of role model leadership in their communities. So, was the achieved? Yeah. Has the vision been accomplished? No. So now is the time to work on the vision. How we move forward to make a difference because Dr. King gave his life for us to be able to have this choice. So the choice is now ours. So I will turn it over to someone else. Oh, and my favorite role model, I would say, is my mother. When I said I wanted to go to an HBCU at the age of 16, she said, "No, I want you to go to Duke University." At a time when I could not have gotten into Duke University. So she didn't, she would have been okay with any HBCU I would have attended if I had not elected to go into the military. But what she was doing, she was planting a seed for greatness. Remember, we talked about greatness? Okay. And to achieve greatness, you always shoot for that star that's just a little bit higher than you think you can reach. And so she was telling me, don't aim for that mediocrity. Always shoot a little higher because you're not a second class citizen. And I listened, went into the military one day and retired as an officer 20 years later. But I never forgot uh, to go to Duke University. Okay, who's next? Oh, now we're bashful.
Uh-oh.
All right, I'll go. I'll go.
Thank you for modeling for us. I appreciate it.
So for me, just a moment of transparency. But first, Dr. Dula, I agree with you 100% that the dream was partially achieved. We still have a lot more to accomplish and implement. You referenced, the police killing young Black people, in the streets at will. So that's, that we still need to address a lot of the systemic issues that still exist in this country. But as far as my role model, I, I am, I'm an adoptee. So my birth mother gave me up for adoption at birth. My adoptive family was physically and mentally abusive. So I didn't really have a role model. I decided that I would be a role model for my daughters and for other young women and men You know, back in the day, all the kids called me mom, all my daughter's friends.
We still
So,
call you mom behind your back, but go ahead.
uh, but yeah, so, you know, I just made a decision to be what I wanted to see exemplified in others. So,
And you
Absolutely.
rose to be the chairwoman of one of the most powerful commissions in Prince George's County, home to the most affluent minority majority county in all of the states of America. So evidently, uh, you had the mindset that I was not going to accept where I'm at, but I'm going to lead the way to get mine and make the life a little better for someone else. And that's the Du Bois theory, and you have proven it to be so, and that's why we appreciate you so much, both inside and outside of the government area, because we see your heart. We know that you're about community of caring, and we're that in you. Okay.
thank you. I wasn't trying to get accolades, but thank you.
But you know what? That's one thing about this show. We call it as we see it. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that I certainly agree. The fight for the dream lives on. And I think that's a daily thing. And we need to continue to remind ourselves of what we need to do to assist and push forward the dream. Right. I think something that it's a lot. It's a lot in our community. What's going on? It can be depressing at times, but we do have to be that beacon of light, absolutely, and continue to move forward. I think one thing that I recently did, the most recent graduating class of the Citizens Police Academy, which gives you the compassion and understanding of what the police officers go through. It gives you that insight, that that eyesight, and understanding of the entire police department, from the chief on down to our patrol officers that are out here working the beats, that are sacrificing themselves, their lives, and their families to protect us. And I think that's something that we have to have. We have to have that empathy, and we need to work together. We can't continue to point the fingers. We have to work together. It's got to be a collaborative thing. The community and the police department have to work together to accomplish our goals. Um, and work on our issues. Put the issues on the table and let's work on them. So I think that's one thing that I wanted to do to lead in that direction, and I encourage anyone and everyone, all citizens, to go through that police academy as a citizen. My, I guess, woman king that I can look at, I guess we can call it that, um, is Coretta Scott King.
Mm.
Um, the power that she held to support who we saw as one of our greatest leaders. And he did so much, but he had to go home. And she was able to uplift him and help him replenish so he can go out in the morning and fight another fight. And I look at that as an example of what I try to do, because I go out and fight as well. And I look for that comfort and that strength, that refueling that I need when I come home and looking at my family and my wife. So that's my woman king of strength and support.
All right. How you
Awesome.
doing? I'm with you on that.
Um, I would say I'm going to make mine fairly quick because I know we're wrapping up. But my is is was the dream accomplished? And again, I think it was to a certain degree, but there's some work in our community that still needs to happen, and it's very grassroots. It's very individualized. It's very much in the homes now, because that is what's going to grow out into the community. it is to be able to um, raise our kids in a way that we're teaching them uh, the things that they need to be taught, like manners, their history, where they come from, who they are, which is very important, because the dream has been laid out, like that part has been accomplished for us. Well, there are still, of course, some systematic things, some systemic things that are happening, but a lot of that still comes from being able to empower the individual. And I believe if we empower the youth in a
Mhm.
healthy way, then we can make those changes that will see the dream fully fulfilled. And so, who would be my woman? And I was like, ooh, I have so many, right? But then when I really thought about it, and what I'm talking about right now is being able to empower people and to see growth. And so I would say my mom, because she comes from this era where she had to kind of navigate through some things. And she did her best to instill that into me and my sister. So, and so we are better for it. Even though she did not necessarily have the best, but we are better for it because of her tenacity to see us be better. So I'm going to say my mom.
And I know you're making your mother very proud.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
now, let me say this too. Let me thank again, Wow WOW Radio, who really makes this broadcast possible. And it's streaming on the screen. How to check their website out at www.wowuradio, wowuradio.net / let's talk politics. And I would encourage our listeners to look up the website and contact us. Let us know what you think. Give us some feedback because this is an intergenerational discussion. I know I'm a baby boomer, proud of it, old but proud of it. And do we have any Generation Xers here?
Me?
We
Yes.
got two Generation Xers, and I guess the next would be a Y. Okay, and so we got the boomer. Oh, wait, let me rephrase that. Okay, we have three generations here: the
Yeah.
baby boomer, the Generation X, and Generation Y. And last segment of and this year, we had Generation, I guess, Z. So as you can see, this is normally an intergenerational discussion, and although sometimes we might disagree, we agree to disagree because everyone's perspective is appreciated, and let me say, solicited and appreciated. So we would like for you to write into us. Let us know what you think. Let us know your comments. Let us know what you thought about the program, and then come back next month when we will have another topic of discussion that will follow this one. Whereas we focus today on King's accomplishments, history, past and present, and the role of women in making the civil rights movement what it is today, because it takes a village to make a difference. And as we continue to move, I want to thank all of our guests. I want to thank our co-host, Mr. John Bailey, who is we're just going to start calling him Dr. Bailey, who is a dynamic person in the community as well as on the air. Ms.
Thank
Lisa
you.
Williams, who is chair of one of our commissions right in Prince George's County. We're very proud of her and all the work that she is doing to touch people across the county, the region, and the United States of America. She's everywhere. She goes to things and she just sends me back. I was here today and I was over there 5 minutes ago. And and, and I just say, wow, where? And then we most certainly thank Miss Crystal Glenn and Tara Lewis, who make this possible because it was vision that drew us all together so that we could come and address the audience that we address across America. And we'll be sending this out as well in days to come. And so we look forward to next month already. And we want to thank all of our listeners. And I think I'm going to turn the program over to Crystal or Terry. I don't know what this announcement is that you guys are talking about, but I'm going to let them bring it to a close.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Bailey because he has an announcement for a cleanup here. So we do have that ready for you, sir.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We are having a day of service, and I believe the flyer should be coming up shortly. That will be on Monday, January 16th from 10 to 2 p.m. As you see, the event flyer is posted in front of you. You can go and register at thedennyhouse.org/events. We have partnered with several organizations in the county. We have the Denny House, who's taking the lead on this. Council member Edward Burroughs' office in District 8, the Kappa, Parks and Recs, Project Clean Water. So we will we will be giving out community service learning hours. So all the students, we have several students already signed up. I believe we have over 150 registrations at this time, as of last night. And we look forward to seeing you all at a day of service, a day to be on the clock and serving our community on Martin Luther King Jr. Day this year.
And so if people would like to know more information, they can get in touch with the dennyhouse.org/events.
That's where the registration is. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, it is a day of service, and I hope people will support the cause, because we don't need to sit home when we can be great, and greatness comes through service to others.
Yes, and we will be meeting. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, we will be meeting at District 7 Police Department in Fort Washington. That's the base where we will be meeting, and then we will disperse from there.
Okay, great. All right. I know that I have a couple of things that I'm going to be doing in the community also on Monday. So we have our agenda as well. Yes. So all of those that are going out and committing some service, thank you so very much. I know that there are some of us in the community that service is not just one day a year. Others may not be able to get out as much. So we thank you for supporting Mr. Bailey and other events taking place throughout gorgeous Prince County or the region during the Dr. King birthday celebration. And please take pictures. And if you'd like pictures and send them to us, we'd appreciate them. I think that I can say that, right, Miss Crystal? You can send pictures to us, and we made it to show what you did during your Martin Luther King Day time of celebration. Yes. So consider that. All right. Okay. With that being said, thank everyone once again. Thank our co-hosts. Thank our presenters. Thank Wow Radio. Thank OG Media. Everyone making this once again our first show of 2023, and we look forward to many more throughout the year. Thank you. Have a great day. Be safe. And remember, it's still alive and well. So make sure you take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Be blessed.
Indie for your mind, indie for your spirit. It's Wild Radio, so you know you're gonna hear it.